Welcome back to the podcast or the vlog, whatever you want to call it. Very happy to be in sunny Lisbon today with my special guest, who I'll now introduce. So, my guest today is a Vietnam War veteran, retired corporate helicopter pilot, an accomplished artist, published author of one book so far, and a father, my father actually. And also a grandfather of how many kids now? How many grandkids?
Four. I do have one great grand.
I can't keep up.
Neither can I.
Well, that's my introduction of you. Is there anything you want to add about yourself?
No, we just subtract a few things. I mean, because that fits the bill. But thanks for the introduction, and I'm very happy to be here.
Great.
Sunny Lisbon is correct. It's been beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I really just wanted to get you on, to sit down with you and talk to you because you've led a very interesting life and been very accomplished in a lot of different areas, which I think is pretty rare. And so I wanted to just get your take on a few things. Most of these questions are unfair. They might have answers that you won't be able to easily give, but I'm going to ask them anyway.
Fine, throw them at me.
All right, so start with a fun one, which is what's your coolest or most interesting pilot story? I know you got a lot.
I have
45 years.
Yeah,
right?
I have to think. Yeah, 45 years of flying. I have to think. I've come across a few, but I think the one that I remember mostly is the time in Alaska when I was returning to my base, and I called in about 5 minutes ahead of time on the Unicom frequency, which means it's just a call and response frequency. Anybody who might be on there might respond, but nobody in general responds. It's a frequency for everyone to use.
Okay.
I called in 5 minutes before I landed, and the next thing I can recall, the next thing I remember specifically, was I was on the pad at flight idle on the ground, exactly where I wanted to be, but I don't remember anything about the approach or the landing. So it taught me that one of the biggest enemies of flying, operating any complex machinery, is fatigue. So I realized at that point that I was probably in a fatigue state, and I stopped flying for that particular day. I just said, no more.
Yeah. How long had you been up? Was it like?
I had been up for quite some time, but at that point, I had been in that same region for quite a bit, maybe about 2.5 weeks. And you can get fatigue on the region itself because you're flying in such a small area that everything becomes so familiar that you stop really being on the lookout. Your alert level tends to go down. And that's why they didn't keep you at a place for very long. 3 weeks was the maximum. So I might have been there for more than 2 weeks at the point where that happened. But on that particular day, it wasn't a very long time. I hadn't been flying for a very long time.
Okay.
So I went into the base operations and just told them I wasn't going to fly for the rest of the day.
Okay. I would have thought it would have been some Vietnam story, but that's interesting. And the fact that you must have had a pretty good autopilot, like internal autopilot, to have landed exactly where you
There's a
wanted
lot
to.
of muscle memory to flying and mental memory. So obviously what I did was I did what I normally do.
Yeah.
But it was so far in the background of my consciousness that, I felt like I woke up when I was on the ramp. I felt like I woke up and here I was where I wanted to be.
Yeah. It's got to be scary.
It was scary. That's exactly why I walked to the base operations and told them I wasn't going to fly for the rest of the day.
Okay. Nice. Well, a new story for me too, so that's good.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
All right, number 2. So, you, like I was saying, you did what you loved doing, for a living.
Yeah.
You wanted to be a pilot since you were a kid, right?
That's correct.
And then you went on to actually be a pilot. And
Yeah.
it's, so I find, it's rare to find somebody who has a passion and then they make it into a career that's successful, for their whole life. So as someone who's done that, I wanted to know, what advice would you give someone who, has a passion that they want to make into something that they do, if you can think of something.
Well, I think that a lot of people have a passion and then they have this attitude that my passion, I love it, but it just isn't going to happen. And so I guess my best advice is take the leap anyway, because perhaps your passion is going to lead you to success. You may not be as successful in something you're not as passionate about, but if you have something that you want, you'll do what it takes to grasp it, I think. And so at least once in your life, reach out for your passion and go for it and see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, if it didn't happen, I probably would have been an accountant somewhere, I guess I might have been successful at that. I don't know.
I'm sure you would have, yeah. Well, I'll second that advice. That's great. But yeah, the defeatist attitude that comes along with just thinking it won't happen.
Yeah, and it's easy to believe that it's easy to be pessimistic, because in a way pessimists are always right, But optimists are people who make things happen. You can't make anything happen if you're not at least a bit optimistic about the success of the venture. So
right.
If you have a lot of optimism, if you really want it, there's a good chance that you'll do what it takes to be successful.
Yeah. All right.
There are no guarantees.
Of course. Yeah.
But you're guaranteed to fail if you don't try.
Yeah. Well, I found like that for myself also. A lot of times I've gone off and done outlandish things that from the outside seem crazy.
Yeah.
But it's always been rewarding, even when
You did a lot of outlandish things as a little boy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and as a teenager. So.
Yeah, that's true. I remember those. But I think that doing those things, even at what'd you say today? Either succeed or learn. Right.
Right.
So even when I failed, I felt
never
like
lose.
Yeah.
I never lose. I either win or learn.
Yeah, I think I got something out of those experiences, even the ones that didn't go where I expected them to. Okay. Here's another unfair one. So
they're all unfair.
They are. This one's worse. What would you say is the number one contributor to your success? And however you define success,
Yeah. I think success. People define success in material terms too often. So I think psychic success. Wow, that's a good question. It's an unfair question.
Thank you.
But I could answer one way, very simply, is that I feel very successful sitting here with my son, who is a really great guy.
Thanks, Dad. No, well,
Maybe that was an unfair answer to you.
That's unfair, yeah.
You're speechless.
I am.
I don't believe it.
You got me. Nice turnaround. Well, what do you think is the contributor? I mean, I guess having me was the contributor to success.
Well, again, success in material terms is one thing.
Yeah.
But there's other kinds of success, and having you and watching you become a man of means, a man who has experiences. Some of those experiences I even envy, So there's that turning point where the son becomes a teacher, the father becomes a student, and I really like that.
Well, thanks, Dad. Well, appreciate that. All right, let's see.
Okay, next.
Okay, this is a good one. I think this is a good one.
But the others weren't good? What?
No, they were good, but this one's more fair.
Okay.
I think this one you might actually be able
A
to
fair
answer.
question. That's probably the one that's going to stump me.
So, what do you know now that you wish you'd known when you were my age?
I wish I'd known that it's more about the company you keep. It's about other people. It's about people. It's about the relationships. I wish I'd known that a little better when I was younger. But yeah, that's about it. I think you get more by giving, and so by giving you find a certain gratification. Sometimes it comes from the responsibility of the person. So you get good positive feedback from the kinds of things that you give to other people. That helps with your self-esteem if you happen to start out on a low level, where I did.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. I'm coming to terms with that now. I think, and because I was very introverted, and not just introverted.
So was I.
Yeah, but also shy when I was growing up, as you know. And so it's hard for me to embrace, being out in the world with people. It's terrifying for me. So learning to do that though has been really rewarding.
Sure, it has.
You meet people, it's how you learn, and it's good advice. I'll take it.
Okay.
I'll take it on board for myself too.
I'm taking it even now. So it's like at my age, you just don't stop learning just because you get older. So I'm taking my own advice every day.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is one of my last questions. And this is more, my business, the character arc, is all about fiction and resonance with fiction and how you use that to your advantage. And so I wanted to ask, what is one of, if not the most, let's say, influential story that you've encountered? Well, I'll give you my answer first.
Okay,
Describe it a little bit.
Sure.
I got this book from you when I was about 14, I think, when I first read A Separate Reality by Carlos Castaneda.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you had all those books.
I had all of them.
Yeah, and I went through it. I think now A Journey to Ishtalan is my favorite.
Okay.
But those books were the first time I encountered, those kind of ideas about existentialism, about how to be in the world. It really opened up a new pathway of exploration for me. So that's been a hugely influential book to me. So
I don't really know how to answer your question.
Because you read a lot. So
I read a lot, but I didn't read an awful lot of fiction. Some of the fact books I might have read may have actually been fiction. I don't really want to go there right now, but stories and characters, I really can't come up with an answer for that.
Okay.
I think it may have been the character, whatever characters I've read about that faced real adversity and somehow overcame it. That resonates with me. If I watch a movie and I decide there's a character there that I associate myself with, that I can actually assert assimilation with, if that character does something stupid to move the plot forward, I'm just like, oh man, what? I want to tear into the screen. Maybe I look at maybe I'm too aware of the Deus Machina, but that's probably one of the reasons why I don't watch fiction or read fiction, because there's so much artifice. The real stories, truth is stranger than fiction. You read about some people and you just shake your head, wow. People who've done things in the past. Bessie Coleman is a person who comes to mind. She's a pioneer aviator. She faced, first she was a black woman, and she learned how to fly in the 1920s. So, okay, let's go there for a minute. She faced a lot of adversity, but she took the steps to overcome every one of those negatives to get to her positive. There's so many stories about people who are born into circumstances that should lead them to some kind of failure or stalemate, who just rise up and just find their way to startling success. And you don't have to look to fiction for that. And fortunately, I've been able to find many examples of that in real life, in history. So maybe that's one of the reasons why I don't gravitate toward fiction, because I've been so startled by the reality of some lives. So, making an artifice out of it, and making something up, almost seems to pale in comparison. So that's not a reason not to go into fiction, because many fiction writers write for the reason that they want to tell maybe a more universalist kind of tale of the same sort. But there's so many examples in real life that I find that very rewarding. It's helped me to learn how to manage my way through life's inconsistencies.
Fair enough. Well, actually leads us to kind of the last thing I want to talk about, which is your book. A fantastic book that I just finished reading a couple days ago. And there were some larger than life characters in that book also. So I just wanted to ask you to maybe tell us a little bit about what's the book about and why did you decide to write it?
Okay, that's good. And it also goes back to some of your earlier questions, because yes, I became a pilot because that was my passion. But that doesn't mean I can't do other things or have desire to do other things. And so writing this book, really out of character for me, because I wasn't considering myself an author at all, but I sort of inherited a story that nobody knew about, and I felt compelled to tell it, because if I didn't, nobody would ever know about it. So I had the material, I was gifted the material, and I used it, and I found that researching the story became a seminal event in my life, and so it was motivating. Once I started researching, I was really motivated to keep writing. And the story is about the church that I grew up in. But it also parallels the story of Harlem almost perfectly, because the church was started about the time that Harlem, a neighborhood in New York City, which turned into an African American neighborhood, populated neighborhood, about the same time that the church started. And many people around the world know Harlem as what it is, which is a cultural beachhead, for African Americans. So the story was connected organically to Harlem, and it just kind of worked my way. I just had to work my way through it to get to the story of the church, how it evolved as Harlem evolved, the politics of Harlem, the population mix of Harlem. And so the story just kind of wrote itself in a way.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of dramatic pauses and schisms and things that happened that gave it some meat, maybe a little controversy. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So becoming a researcher became another part of me that I didn't know existed, and I found it very rewarding.
Yeah. Well, the fruits of your labor were well received, at least by me. I thought it was really interesting. Having been, so I got the book here for everyone. It's called Seventh Day Rebels, Harlem's Black Sabbath Keepers. And so it kind of tells the story of the split in the Seventh Day Adventist Church that kind of mirrored the time around the Harlem Renaissance.
That's right.
And a lot of the challenges faced by the offshoot branch of the Seventh Day Adventists, and what that was like being in that time and seeing everything going on there. And I was lucky enough, as a kid, going to that church to visit.
Yeah.
Where your father was pastor.
Yeah, he was. He was a pastor for pretty much, for all of my life, up until the time that he passed away.
Yeah, and but I remember going there as a kid myself, and meeting some of the older people some of them who are still alive now.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Who have that first person experience with all these stories that go back to the early 1900s. I never was big into history as a young person, but now I'm starting to see it for what it is, like what you just talked about.
As I get older, I sort of feel more connected to figures in the past, because I've lived through a number of generational eras, and I'm kind of glad that you can feel that connection too.
Yeah,
that's one of the things I wanted.
Yeah,
and hopefully that gives you a little insight into me and what I've experienced coming up. But the next thing I would like to do is sort of give you a more biographical story of myself, maybe a memoir. But I can't give you a timeline narrative, but I think I can drop stories on you from various parts of my past that would show you a bit of who I am. So I'd like to do that so I can move things forward. The connections from the future to the past has to be strong.
Yeah. I'll take them. I'll take any stories you got. I remember when you were keeping your blog. I was following that religiously, because you tell these little vignette stories. It's the times when you were in Vietnam, or just these experiences you had, and it was really interesting. And you also have been a photographer your whole life, so there's pictures that kind of go along with this. Right. So yeah, I'm looking forward to whatever comes up next.
Okay, I am too.
But yeah, I want to show the book again.
One more time.
You can get it on Amazon. It's really fascinating, especially if you have an interest in history and these it's such a small piece of history in the context, but it wraps into the larger context so well that it almost feels, the macrocosm is made up of microcosms.
Right. Yeah, I do quite a bit of name dropping in this book of names that you wouldn't even associate with Harlem. And these historical characters did feature in the history of Harlem, even if it's tangentially. But Harlem had a huge influence on a lot of people, not just culturally, but historically and politically. So that's reflected in the book.
Yeah, that's and well, I like it. So thanks for writing it.
Great.
Thanks for sitting down with us here today. Thanks for sitting with me, and actually thanks for visiting us here in Lisbon. It's been great having you.
I'm certainly happy to be here, and I've got one of the best hosts and hostesses in the world. So thanks again, and I enjoyed my trip, and I will be back.
All right. I hope so. You better be. All right, Dad.
Great.